everybody. Welcome back to the Coff-Man Show. I'm your host, Mike Coff-Man. I want to tell you a story. It's a dark story. Something that I'll leave it to you to decide whether it's real or not. But I served in the military for a long time. And we went around the world and saw a lot of things. We got stationed at a remote outpost in the middle of nowhere, Iraq. This was not uncommon because a lot of soldiers, especially in the infantry, we would get stationed places that nobody else wanted to go. When that happened, we usually just wrote it off as higher ups didn't care about where we were. They didn't have a plan for us, so they just stuck us somewhere. This one time, we got sent to this bunker. We didn't even know where we were. They put us on Black Hawks and Chinook helicopters and flew us out and said, "You'll know when you get there. Follow the rules. Don't break the rules." That's all they said. So for 10 hours we flew, stopping twice to get fuel. Weren't allowed off the helicopters or the Chinooks. We just sat there. Most of us slept. I sat at the back next to the door gunner, and I just watched. By the time we got there, it was dark. I could tell we'd flown over some major cities, and the only two I could think of were Ramadi and Baghdad. When we landed, according to my watch, was approximately 4.5 hours later after we passed over our next largest city, in which direction I couldn't tell you. It was 2 o'clock in the morning, and they hurried us off the helicopters and hurried us into this room, this building, this dark, almost like catacomb. And we stood there. No lights, at least no white lights, red lights everywhere, so the features were all distorted. We all stood there looking at one another. There was 15 of us to start. The door closed to the main entrance when the last guy walked in, and all the lights turned on white, bright white lights. They ushered us into this room, like a conference room, but it had bench seating, almost like church pews. And a guy in all black camo fatigues walks in, and he says, wearing a face mask, and tells us, "Sit down, shut up, listen to the rules." And the rules were as follows. Don't show curiosity. Now imagine 15 guys sitting in a room. You don't know where you're at. You don't know what you're doing. And the first rule is, don't show curiosity. Okay. Being in the military, we're used to those kind of random, mic drops. Don't zoom in. Okay. I don't know. I was a long-range marksman, so I'm assuming you don't want me to use my scope. The stranger one was, don't pause the footage. Okay. Now I know that I'm going to be watching a recording. Interesting. But lastly, the most important of all the rules, if you forget all the rest, do not look at his face. Okay. So now you had my curiosity, but now you've perked my interest. Now I want to see what we're talking about. They divided us into two groups. Obviously, it was an odd number because there's only 15 of us. So, me being the unfortunate one, I got stuck in group 2. Group 1 was in charge of securing cells. Oh, I didn't know this at the time. Group 2 was in charge of recording, documenting all the footage. I didn't know that until we got there. They put us in individual cells. They were 4 by 4. There was a computer screen facing behind us and they had an all black, almost like obsidian mirror in front of us. And they said, "Do not look at the screen behind you. Stare at the mirror in front of you." And they gave us a legal pad, 8.5 by 11, and told us, "Document what you see and what you hear, but at no point are you to turn around and look at the monitor." This was at 2:10 a.m. The door closed. The lock was so loud in the deafening silence that it actually hurt my ears for a second. The room was quiet, except for the electrical hum. I was getting chills just because of how quiet it was. It was unnervingly quiet. And I'm staring at this mirror, and all I can see is a screen that shows people walking, but you couldn't make out their faces. I would later find out that it was because their faces were electronically distorted on purpose. I would also later find out that those faces belonged to my friends, my fellow soldiers. So since we weren't allowed to watch directly, we documented everything we saw through the mirror. It was kind of difficult. So I look at my watch, and it's 2:17 a.m. All of a sudden, a klaxon alarm sounded. You know the one I'm talking about. Just the on and off wailing. A red light came on in the room that I didn't even know was there to begin with. Getting chills. Sorry. So I turn around to stand up, and the screen I make eye contact with, I can see everybody's faces. But one stood out to me above all. At 2:18, the alarm stopped, and the screaming started. It wasn't screaming, it was like laughter or crying or somebody wailing, like just uncontrollably sobbing. It was so ragged and powerful that you would think that it sounded like ribs cracking from the amount of crackling sounds it made through the microphones. It was horrible. It was just, I couldn't even describe it. Worse than nails down a chalkboard or somebody taking a fork and knife and scraping it on a plate. But it was coming from the men on the ground outside the cells, which really threw me. They were all in the fetal position, curled up. And then, one by one, I heard it. Bang. 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 And before I realized it, it was gunshots. But not repetitive, individual gunshots. I'm looking in the mirror, and I noticed all 14 guards slumped over, their sidearms laying on the ground beside them. They took their own lives, but I didn't know why. So I stood up, hurried, knocked over my chair, and I went to the door. I grabbed the handle, and I wiggled it, but it didn't open. If you want to know what happened in part 2 of this story that you can decide is true or fiction, let me know in the comment section below.